All right, it is now 6:30. All right, let me make sure. All right, YouTube is on. Lady J, let me know if you can hear me well and if you can see me.
Yes, I can.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much. All right, y'all. Welcome back to another edition of Book Talk Tuesday. I'm Jaleesa, also known as Jaleesa the Golden Child, and this conversation came from last year. I did a book talk for my first book that I self-published, and the title of that is "It's All in Me: My Journey to Freedom and Living Abundantly," and it's on my website, jaleesahardy.com, as well as Amazon and other platforms as well. But I did a 6 week book talk where we discussed the different chapters and the different insights, wisdom, knowledge, and information that came from my book. And after that whole 6 week experience, I wanted to continue the conversation because I'm always reading great books. I know there have been conversations with other people and other groups in different spaces, and they're always talking about the amazing books that they're reading or have read. And I was like, I don't want to do a regular book. What do they call them? What is it called?
Like a book club or something.
Yes, yes. I didn't want to do like a regular book club. So I was like, let's just continue the conversation. Let's just talk about our books. Let's share the wisdom. Let's share the insight. Let's share how we're actually implementing what we're reading versus just checking it off the list to say, oh, I read for 5 minutes, or I read a chapter today, or I read this book. So for me, this space is about coming together to really get involved with the information, wisdom, and knowledge that we're reading and integrate it into our lives in a way that is feasible for us, and then have conversations about what we're reading, how we're actually implementing, and hold each other accountable. Because for me, this keeps me accountable for continuing to read. Because some days I'm just like, yeah, I don't feel like it. But knowing that, I at least have one chapter that I'm accountable for, I can be intentional each week to make sure that I'm reading so that I can show up here and have this conversation. So, a little bit more about me. I'm here in Glen Burnie, Maryland. Originally from Buffalo, New York. I am a author, a publisher. I support aspiring authors and current authors with self-publishing their books, journals, ebooks, coloring books, and the like. I'm also a doula. I am a board certified holistic health practitioner. I'm a speaker. I'm a trauma and money certified professional. Um, and a bunch of other things. But we're here today to have this conversation about our books. And a book that I'm currently reading, and I've been reading since November, honestly, is Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz. And we are up to chapter 9. I think we have, I don't know how many chapters left, but we're getting through it week by week. Yeah, I think it's like 5 or 6 more chapters left. But this week's chapter is, the title of it is The Failure Mechanism: How to Make It Work for You Instead of Against You. But before I do that, Lady J, feel free to come off mute and introduce yourself. And if you want to talk about a little bit about the book that you're reading or the book that you want to talk about, feel free to do that as well.
Give me 1 second. I'm cooking collard greens and cornbread.
Oh, okay. No worries.
All right.
Getting that dinner made.
I had a taste for 'em. The cornbread is not good for me, but I'm gonna have a little bit today. So,
It's all
um,
about moderation, okay?
ooh, girl, if I could eat cornbread in moderation, if I could, but I'm have more greens than cornbread. I go by the name of Lady J, just for privacy reasons from my job. Um, I'm a very creative individual as well. I'm a former PG County school educator. And I'm now a former museum professional, and I'll be transitioning into hopefully an executive director position. I'm praying about that. So yeah, I'm here. I'm glad to be back. I wasn't here for a few of your meetings, doing some spiritual work, and I'm still doing that, but I'm not fasting to the point that I can't connect through the internet. Um, so yeah, that's about it for now.
Yes, thank you so much for sharing. And yes, I know you were gone for a minute. I definitely missed you, but it was okay. We still got it done.
Yeah. Yay! I miss y'all too. I mean, a couple of times I almost picked my phone up and signed in, and I was like, "Oh, wait a minute! Oh, you're not supposed to." Okay.
Yes, I definitely understand. Just staying away from like social media and places and communities that you're used to being a part of. It's like, dang, I miss it a little bit. But yes, the chapter 9, again, the title of it is the failure mechanism, how to make it work for you instead of against you. In this chapter, Maltz explains that just as we have a success mechanism that can guide us toward growth, we also have a failure mechanism that can keep us stuck if we let it. We get to choose by our conscious actions whether we're going to be guided by our success mechanism or our failure mechanism. But it's important for us to have the knowledge of them. If we don't have the knowledge of them, then it's either going to be one or the other based off of our experiences, based off of what we've seen, based off of the people around us as well. So he breaks it down, the key elements of the failure mechanism and how to reprogram them. And he gave a, was that this chapter? No, that was another chapter. But the failure mechanism, how it works, and the different I wouldn't necessarily say they're just emotions, but it's how we show up in the world or what comes up in response to different stimulus or different experiences that we have. So the first one he talks about is frustration. And it's when we feel stuck or powerless, it can lead to negative thinking and self doubt. But he says that frustration is a signal, it tells us that something needs to change. So you can think of it as like a message or a sign that, okay, I'm doing something, I might be bumping my head against the same wall or trying to go through this same situation or get through the same experience. But if I keep doing the same thing, I'm going to get frustrated because I'm not getting anywhere. So if you're driving your car and your car, or especially in the like in the snow, and your car, your truck, whatever it is that you're driving gets stuck, and you're steady spinning your wheels, spinning your wheels, spinning your wheels, trying to move, and you're like, I'm literally not going anywhere. You're going to get frustrated because you want to get to your destination, you want to get to your goal. But the more that you spin your wheels, it's you're still not going to get anywhere. So what he's talking about is just understanding that that frustration, it doesn't have to keep you stuck. It's just a message that you, if there's something that needs to change in order to get to your destination or your goal. The second thing he talks about was hopelessness. If we've experienced repeated disappointments, we might start believing success isn't possible for us. But this is just a mental habit, not reality. So when we have different experiences or even a lifestyle or what's the word I'm looking for? Not lifestyle, but like an upbringing. Our upbringing might have brought repeated disappointments. And we start to believe that this is the only thing that we're going to see, this is the only thing that we're going to experience. We can shift our mentality, we can shift our mind to believe that, okay, even though this is what I've seen, this is all I've seen, I can believe something different and bring in a new reality for myself, even if it's just an inner reality, how I see myself, how I believe myself to be. The third thing is insecurity. Comparing ourselves to others, fearing judgment, or feeling like we're not enough can keep us from taking action. This one, I tell you, like, is one that, as far as like limiting beliefs was one of the biggest ones that I have overcome in all 34 years of my life. Growing up with a mom who had expectations of perfection, it was like literally even our outer appearance had to be literally perfect. Like she would wake us up at 4 o'clock in the morning to start our hair every single morning before school because she wanted our hair to be perfect, our clothes to be perfect. We couldn't go outside and get dirty in our clothes, even play clothes. So it was this expectation of perfection, looking perfect, getting perfect grades, doing things perfectly, speaking perfectly. So for me, it bred insecurity because I'm always trying to live up to these unrealistic expectations that my mom planted in my head without, but again, she was doing the best that she could with what she had. It wasn't that she intentionally wanted us to be insecure. It wasn't that she was intentionally uh making us perfectionist, but that was her experience and that was what she, our experience with her. So for me, this insecurity thing, especially in relationships with men, has been something that hasn't been a challenge to overcome, but I would say more so in the last year or so after my divorce, I've really done the work to heal my inner child so that those insecurities are not as prominent. They still, every now and again they come up, but I'm aware of them. So I don't allow them to dictate how I'm going to respond or how I'm going to react in situations and circumstances and relationships. So, number 4, loneliness and isolation. When we feel disconnected or unsupported, we may withdraw, reinforcing negative beliefs about ourselves. Loneliness and isolation, what he was talking about in the book, is basically our when we've been in relationships with people and we've been disappointed, we've been hurt, we've been, abused, used, whatever the case may be, we intentionally isolate ourselves to keep from being hurt. We don't want to continue to be hurt in relationships. So we say to ourselves and choose to be lonely because to us, after being hurt so many times, after being in so many chaotic and dysfunctional relationships, it's like, you know what? I'm just going to, I'm going to say to myself, that's the best thing for me. But in doing that, we take on this identity of not being good at relationships. You might take on a belief that you're not worthy of having a good and healthy relationship. You might take on a belief that you're unlovable. So the more we choose to isolate, the more we reinforce the negative beliefs about ourselves. When we find healthy people and healthy relationships, that will help to enforce and reinforce the positive beliefs about ourselves. Um, Number 5. And Lady J, stop me at any time if you have any questions or if you want to share on any of the points that I'm talking about. Number 5, resentment. This one was really good too. He said, holding on to anger towards others or even ourselves can block growth and keep us tied to past hurts instead of moving forward. When he gave the definition of resentment, he mentioned that resentment is basically trying to, like having emotions or feelings about something and trying to change something that happened in the past. So when you're resentful, you're holding grudges, you're unforgiving, it's like you're trying to your emotions are focused on a past experience that you had and trying to change that, which you can't. It's already happened. So when he was talking about resentment, he really went into, like people say, oh, let it go. Like he really went in depth on what resentment is and how to move forward from it versus it just being, oh, just let it go, just forgive, whatever the case may be. And he really went more into in depth in chapter 10 when he talked about forgiveness. So I'm excited for that conversation next week because I never really heard people explain forgiveness in this way, but that's next week. The last thing he talked about was unclear goals. Without clear direction, our minds default to old habits, often leading to procrastination, fear, and inaction. So if we're unclear on the direction that we want to go, if we're unclear on what we want to do, we're going to go back to, oh, I'm just going to do what I've done before. I'm just going to continue these old habits. I'm just going to continue to do these old things because it's familiar, it's comfortable, I'm used to doing it. But if we want something different, we want something new, we don't want to continue to function from our failure mechanism. We have to get clear on, okay, God, source, universe, what are we doing? Even if it's just moment to moment. You don't necessarily, your goal can be to hear from God, source, higher power more clearly, and that requires some actions, whether it's sitting still, whether it's like Lady J was saying, fasting from certain things, so that you can have that interaction and encounter, so that you can hear clearly about, okay, what's next. A lot of times we're so distracted by all the other things, all the other options, all the other people, all the things on social media, TV, the news, all of these things that are keeping us getting clear on our goals and the direction that we desire to go in, or the direction that God, source, higher power has for us to go in. So it's important for us to be mindful of the distractions, be mindful of the things that are keeping us stuck in fear and procrastination. Because one, we might be comparing ourselves to other people on social media, we might be comparing ourselves to family members, friends, people around us. But it's important for us to get still, get quiet, get with our source, get with our inner guide, so that we can get clear on where we're going and what is guiding us, whether it's our success mechanism or our failure mechanism. So, again, those key elements of the failure mechanism and how to reprogram it are addressing frustrations, addressing hopelessness, insecurity, loneliness and isolation, resentment, and unclear goals. Um, for Before we move forward, did you want to touch on any of the things that I mentioned, Lady J, or did you have any questions?
I did have a question.
Mhm.
Give me 1 second.
Okay.
Okay, so I could relate when you were talking about the insecurity that and how he described it. And then you brought up how that can affect or and not affect impact other relationships. So you were mentioning it sound like maybe I don't know, maybe I'm hearing it through my own lens. Dating relationships crossed my mind when you said that because
Mm-hmm.
it seems like, and not every man, but it seems like there's a specific kind of man that looks for uh, a woman's insecurity. They play on it. So I know as far as the chapter, I would love to like read it for myself and look at that because um I've been single for a while, never been married, and I find that um there are certain things that I don't even know why a specific guy would even be attracted to me, but this specific guy seems to, and not when I say specific guy, I mean a type. Um, they look for something I'm insecure about, and I wonder sometimes if maybe they pick up on it just from my vibration. I don't know, like I just noticed that, and I know that um, I'm making different decisions in my journey as a single woman. Of course, like earlier, I mentioned that I'm working on the spiritual aspects of my relationship with God and myself. And so that insecurity thing, it doesn't, like, I know on one day a couple of guys came up to me and I was just like, it was, first of all, their timing was not good. And I was trying not to be rude, but I was on my way somewhere. But it's like each one of them, I don't know, I think what they said triggered me, but it has something to do with, like you were explaining, how when you were a little girl, there was certain expectation of, like how you had to present yourself, represent yourself. And I get that with our families that, as little Black girls, then we represented our parents and they wanted us to appear a specific way in social settings and out in public. So that, I don't know, that's an area that I think I need to work in because it crossed my mind when you mentioned that. And so just to not take up too much time, one of the guys was at Addison Road Metro Station. Of all places, I had not been there for years. And I mean, that used to be like my spot when I was a teenager. And I was on my way. I can't even tell you where, but when I say I was rushing, I'm talking about I sprinted up those steps and like I was going fast enough to jump the gate, but I didn't. And he like really went out of his way to stop me. And I was like, look, I don't have time to really talk to you right now. I'm not trying to be rude, but at that time, if I had not made my connection, I don't know if your viewers are watching and if it looks like you're relating. If I miss this next connection, then I'm never going to make it to where I'm going. Then it's kind of like what you're mentioning in the chapter. I got frustrated. If I don't make the connection, I'm gonna feel hopeless about getting to where I'm gonna go. And then not gonna feel so good. Then I'm just gonna say, forget it. I don't want to do nothing the rest of the day. Let me just be by myself and go back home. And so I don't think he really was getting that. He just wanted what he wanted. And when I finally stopped, I was like, all right. I figured that because he stopped me that 1/10 of a second. In my mind, I was not going to make my bus, right? So I let him talk. And he should have seen from my facial expression and my body language that I was not interested. I really did not care. But I let him talk. And when he finished, I said, I'm not interested, but thank you. And I left. I made it through the gate. I missed that bus, but there was another one directly behind it. And I could not thank God fast enough. I jumped on that sucker and I made it to where I was going. But the whole time, I'm already on the bus and the windows crack and I can hear him calling me all kinds of names. He still teed off and I'm on the bus and I'm like, wow, who's he talking about like that? And everybody looking on the bus at me. At that moment, I want to go into, oh no, you're not going to talk. But see, if I had did that, I would have got off the bus. It would have been me and him at Addison Road. I wouldn't have been a lady. So, but what did stick with me when I got to where I was triggered again because there was a young lady, there was a social circle setting at a cafe. And one of them was like, how did you even have time to make sure that your clothes didn't have any wrinkles in it? Your face is this, your hair is that. And I was like looking at her like, girl, I just got here. You don't even know my full name yet. Oh, well, you look so perfect. And that's what that triggered me. And then, so I was quiet during the meeting. I ain't had nothing to say. I bit my sandwich, girl. And I was like, I went right through your list. I was like, look, I did not come out here to deal with, okay, I already had a little one knucklehead stop me. I ain't had time for the other three. And now I got this girl talking about how perfect I look. I'm not perfect, right? But then if I had justified to her why I don't see myself as perfect, she probably could have just used that as ammunition against me. So I was just like, yeah, I gotta find another group. Mm-mm. So I hope that wasn't too long, but all of it, everything you said, I can connect with that insecurity. His thing was, right before I got on the bus, he told me something about one of the buttons on my shirt. And I was like, I rode that bus looking at that daggone button the whole time, right? And then it hit me. He just did that to get under my skin. And it worked. It worked. Why did it work? So I'm riding there. It took probably too long to get there. And I'm like, why am I thinking about what this guy who felt rejected, why am I thinking about what he just said to me? And I remember as a child, I can't, I remember the school that I went to was more so very strict with little black girls and how we looked. I can't say that there was one, someone else that wasn't African American. I can't ever remember a time that they were pulled to the side about what they had on. I mean, they it was some issues there. I know we couldn't wear braids. We couldn't. There were a lot of things that specifically tapped into the African American culture that was not accepted at that school. And from the moment that my mom took me out of that school, I rebelled against it all. I mean, I wanted my hair braided every chance I got. If I couldn't, like there were certain colors that you couldn't wear, I wore them. I didn't care what nobody thought. I'm gonna put them on. So what? So what? I'm dark skinned. I'm gonna wear red. So what? You don't like orange on me. I don't care. So, but yeah, that button is so. When I finally got home at the end of the day, and I looked at myself in the shirt, I was like, "You really, you really let him go. You really let him have that power over you, and you thought all that time about your button." So yeah. So yeah, I'll be working in this chapter in the insecurity part because it's just a button, you know what I'm saying? But when I say when I say I went to the bathroom and pent that sucker, I was just like, this thing. And then one of the girls noticed in the group, she was like, uh-oh, Jaleesa, I gotta plug my phone in. It's dying. I'ma come right back.
Okay. Yeah, while we wait for Lady J, I definitely want to respond to what she's saying. But like she was talking about, for many of us, societal pressures, generational trauma, and lived experiences can fuel some of these failure mechanisms. When we're responding with frustration or responding, not just like a slight frustration, but he talked about chronic frustration where like every little thing can trigger you to be frustrated and go down this cascade of experiences with hopelessness, insecurity, isolation, and loneliness, resentment, and that literally throwing you off your path to having unclear goals and feeling like you're lost, feeling like you don't have a purpose, feeling like you don't know where you're going, what you're doing, or even have a faith or a confidence about what's next. Because sometimes you don't necessarily know. But for me, my faith journey, my faith walk, sometimes I only know where I am in the present. I don't necessarily always know, like, oh, this is the next thing or this is what's going to happen, whatever the case may be. More recently, I've been trying to detach from the outcome of the things that I'm doing, like YouTube, like these book talks, like my LinkedIn, like, my publishing company, my doula, the doula part of my brand, like all of those things that I'm doing, trying to detach from the outcome and be more present, be more focused on the moment, knowing that in each moment I am a step closer to where I desire to be. And sometimes for me, and I think I was literally writing about this in my journal, I can be so impatient. And I was literally just talking to my business coach about this yesterday. He called me. He like, how are things going? What's going on? And I'm like, I'm losing my enthusiasm and excitement for the things that I'm doing. And usually when that happens, I'm looking for something else that's going to excite me, something new, something different, something else to do instead of sticking to what I'm working on in order to get the outcome. I'm just like, it's not working. It's been a week, it's been a month, it's been X amount of time, it's not working. So instead of sticking to it, I'm just trying to be on to the next thing. And the more you do that, when you're stepping away from something that is aligned for your path, the longer it takes to get to your destination, the longer it takes to get to where you desire to be and who you desire to be. Because the things that you're working on, the things that God has for you to do, there are lessons there are messages there are experiences and people that He has for you to meet that you'll miss if you decide, oh, it's not exciting no more. I'm not enthusiastic about it anymore. I'm gonna just go on to the next thing. So for me, it's about being patient with the process, like understanding that frustration, those insecurities, that resentment, the sometimes a lack of clarity is just for us to get present and get still and know that, you know what, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be right now. Even if the outcome isn't what I want it to be when I want it to be, it's okay. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be right now. Um, okay. Wait and see if Lady J comes back. Um, let me see. Why is it not? Oh, this is why. Take off the waiting room. So when she comes back, we don't have to worry about that. But why I entitled this video as failure is not an option is because we get to choose. And even when we have an experience that we feel like is a failure, it's not necessarily a failure, it's a learning experience. I tell people all the time, I don't take L's. I do not take L's. It's a lesson or a blessing that I'm getting from this experience. I'm not going to sit there and say, oh, this person left me, that's a loss, or I didn't get this opportunity, that's a loss. No. And it's either a lesson, a blessing, or a redirection to something better. Okay. So when we have these experiences where we feel like it's a failure or something didn't work out, I choose to shift my perspective to say, you know what, this is a lesson, a blessing, or a redirection to something better or to something that's for me. Um, I see you back on, Lady J. Was there more that you wanted to share?
No, I'm good. Did you hear me when I said, "Uh-oh, my phone getting ready to cut
I
off"?
did. I did.
Girl, the
I
screen
did.
was black then. Okay.
Yes, I did. But one of the things you mentioned was it's like, how do we keep? It's like we run into the same person, but with the same spirit, but they have a different face. Okay, that's what it seems like. But the thing about it is, we have different parts of ourselves. Like I mentioned, our inner child. If our inner child is wounded, a predator always knows when their prey is wounded. They literally have this instinct to be able to smell the wounds of their prey. So that's what it's like when you're wounded as a woman or even as a man. Someone who is a predator, they're going to be able to smell that you're wounded. They're going to be able to sense that you're wounded and know that that's a weakness, and they're going to approach you from that space. Even if you're like, I've done all this work or whatever the case may be, there's still a part of you in some way that is still wounded that they're attracted to. So for me, like I was saying, I did a lot of work on my inner child because that's where a lot of my wounds came from my father, from my mother, from childhood experience that I had that I shouldn't have had. So more of my work recently has been centered around that and reminding my inner child that she's safe so that she can have the opportunity to heal those wounds that have literally been gaping since I was a child. But it's like people will, and even if you are healed, wounded people are attracted to light because they know that they're going to get what they need from this space, even if they have nothing to offer. And now being where I am, I'm noticing certain things and certain people coming into my life. It's like, oh, they're seeing it's an opportunity. I'm gonna be able to get what I need, get the love that I need, get the care that I need, get the attention that I need that I'm missing because they're not willing to do the work to give those things to themselves. for me now in relationships, I'm not so needy. I'm not so codependent. I'm not so focused on getting what I need from this person or what I want from this person, because I'm doing the work to meet my own needs, to make sure that my cup is filled up, so that when I go to you, if you don't have what I need, or if you're not willing to contribute to my needs being met, it's okay, because I'm good. It's absolutely fine. You don't have you don't have to give. That's absolutely fine. And for me, it's been such a shift in the dynamic of my relationships, because I was so used to being very needy, being very like attached. Like, oh, I need to talk to you every day, all day. I need to be up under you. I need to be literally in your skin. To now, it's like, if I don't talk to you, it is what it is. Like, if you don't come around, I don't see you. It is like, it just is what it is. I'm not so pressed and desperate for attention, affection, and love, because I'm giving it to myself. I'm making sure that my needs are met. I'm making sure that my love cup is filled. I'm making sure that my attention cup is filled. And even if it's not completely filled, I'm not putting up to you on complete empty, trying to get my love cup filled. So, um, and there was something else that you said as far as like society's expectations of us as Black women, as little Black girls. They have this idea that we always have to be put together. We always have to look a certain way. We always have to show up and present ourselves in a certain way. We can't make mistakes. We can't, talk a certain way, because they're going to perceive us a certain way. But at the end of the day, we're not perfect. We weren't meant to be perfect. So for me, being able to release this idea that, you know what, I don't have to be perfect. Nobody is perfect. So to have other people holding me to this expectation of perfection that they can't even uphold themselves is insane to begin with. So for me, it's been a lot of releasing the conditioning, releasing the beliefs, releasing these ideas that I have to be someone or something that is not meant for me to be. Um, but it's definitely a day to day work, because, like you said, certain experiences trigger you based off of your past experiences. But it's really just a message to say, okay, even if this is something that I worked on before, it's something else within this for me to continue to work on. Go ahead, Lady
Yep,
J.
that's deep. I'm taking it in. I'm receiving that.
Yeah, it's a journey. Healing life is a journey. But the more present and the more aware we can be, I feel like the easier it is. Because the more we focus on the past, the more we try to fix the past, the more we try to, have all these different thoughts, beliefs, and emotions about the past that we can't change, the harder life becomes, because it's like we're stuck in the past trying to fix mistakes that have already been made. When in the present, we're actually okay, we're actually good. But because we're so focused on trying to fix past mistakes and try not to make the same mistake again, we continue to perpetuate the same things over and over, instead of getting into the present, being aware, and saying, you know what, I'm okay, I'm safe, and I'm moving forward. Even if progress is not linear. For me, progress has never been linear. But I realized that for anybody, progress is really not linear. I call it a dance, because it's like sometimes you're taking steps forward, sometimes you're taking steps back, sometimes you're taking steps to the left, to the right, but it's still progress because you're still in motion. You can't make progress sitting still. Yes, take time to rest. Yes, take time to, replenish, regenerate, rejuvenate yourself, but progress is not, it's not going to be linear. You're not going to get from A to B in most situations and circumstances.
So let me ask you, in that chapter when they're talking about the different um things that you shared with us, if there's a specific
Mm-hmm.
thing like someone's frustrated, um and then that it sounds like I'm echoing, I'm sorry. If someone's frustrated, but they want to work on that frustration or the insecurity. I don't. I wrote them down, but I left that room, and they in the other room, so I don't have them with me. Does that book give you like different like things to do to work on that? Because some things some of us have experienced in our childhood, say like for example, um, that the trauma would have happened in childhood. It's like I guess the question that crossed my mind is like if you're still operating in that state of mind that goes through those different things, how does one even get their mind out of that by themselves? I guess I don't know, like, did he or she that wrote the book, did they give like different examples of how they could possibly like change that? Because for some of us, we just can't see a way out of that. It's like, okay, like you mentioned, or maybe I heard it. You may not have you may not have said it, but like you could say something, but other people's mind process it differently. It's what I'm trying to say. So for some people, if it's all they know, then they don't see a responsibility of they got to do something different. They'll just keep doing the same thing. And it's like, well, this is what I know how to do. So I'm just wondering in that chapter if they're given like steps to kind of start someone on their journey to changing that mindset, or at least an action step.
Yeah, it does. It gives, so after the different aspects of the failure mechanism, it goes in depth into you like what it means as far as frustration. And something that I highlighted, it says chronic frustration usually means that the goals we have set for ourselves are unrealistic, or the image we have of ourselves is inadequate, or both. So he goes on to talk about setting practical goals versus perfectionist goals. So being intentional about the way that you set your goals so that they're realistic, that they're something that they're attainable, and really looking at the image that you have of yourself. Um, and there is actually a workbook that goes along with this book by another author, and in the workbook it gives you different activities to do based off of the lessons to work on your self image. I don't know if you can see that, but it gives you different activities to journal on, or different activities to do when it comes to shifting your self image. Because we talked about this, I don't remember what chapter, but really all throughout the book, the way that we see ourselves is the way that we're going to show up. So if someone sees their self as a failure, they're going to their actions, their behaviors, the way that they think, the way that they feel is going to be in alignment with how they see themselves. So for someone who may not even know, and I feel like a lot of people, and he talked about this in the book, it's like they're sleepwalking. It's like they're literally just, going through the motions. They're literally just subconsciously just doing what they're used to, doing what they've been doing because that's all they know. But the more we take responsibility for ourselves to see, okay, this isn't working. I'm literally going nowhere. I'm literally not attaining the things that I desire. And the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results. So if you continue to, produce the same results, at some point you got to think, even though I don't know that there's another way, you're going to, yes. The title of it is Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz. And then the workbook is by Workbook Psycho-Cybernetics is by Guide Guru Publishing. Um, and I'll take a picture and post it in the Meetup group. Just remind me. But when it comes to And a lot of these things, like I wouldn't have known about this book had I not been in spaces or community spaces that talk about stuff like this. So the shift that I've experienced from reading this book came from me being in spaces where other people are reading things like this and sharing what they're doing. That's why I was like, you know what, let me go ahead and share it, because although it's a book that's been around for decades, a lot of people still don't know about it. But it is a powerful tool when it comes to shifting our lives, shifting our mindset, shifting our self image. Um, so it's about one, stepping outside of your comfort zone. And like I talked about earlier, sometimes faith requires us to see something that we've never seen before, or do something that we've never done or seen done before, and doing it messy, doing it with the fear, doing it with those uneasy emotions, to say, you know what, I don't know what I'm doing, but it's something different than what I've been doing, and I'm just going to figure it out along the way. So for those that may not have examples or may not have the outlet or other people around them to say, you know, hey, let's try this, we all have to take responsibility for ourselves if we want something different, to do something different instead of staying inside of our comfort zone. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. I also see that it's on. I got a digital copy. It looks like.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see.
Yeah, they do have the
It's
audio version.
on.
Where I first started reading it was on YouTube. So I started reading the audiobook on there, and then I went back and listened to it
Yeah, it it doesn't tell me what number I am, but now I can. Yeah, I can see. Dang, my phone's breaking up. So yeah,
I don't know.
it's probably it's probably on this last leg.
No, it might be on my end because it just said low bandwidth on my end too. So it might be me on my end. But yeah, it might be on Libby. The libraries have it, but yeah, it's when I say it's a really good book when it comes to just shifting your mindset, shifting your life, shifting the way that you look at things and the way that you see things. It's really really good. So let me see. Um, I already read one of the quotes that I was going to share today. The other one is, and you were asking about like practical things that you can do. And it was talking about, I think this was the chapter about aggressiveness. It talked about frustration leading to aggression if it's chronic frustration. If you're consistently feeling frustrated in response to your experiences, it can turn into aggressiveness and what do you, misguided or mishandled um aggression. So basically like you're directing your aggression towards the wrong thing. And he said all types of physical exercises are excellent for draining off aggression and frustration. Long brisk walks, push-ups, and dumbbell exercises are good. Especially good are the games where you hit or smash something like golf, tennis, bowling, punching the bag. So it does give you like practical things to do to deal with the experiences or the emotions that you're having. Um, Another quote, it says, talking about insecurity, it says, a great deal of insecurity is not due to the fact that our inner resources are actually inadequate, but due to the fact that we use a false measuring stick. We compare our actual abilities to an imagined, ideal, perfect, or absolute self. Thinking of yourself in terms of absolutes induces insecurity. Um, what else from this chapter? It was a quote and talking about uncertainty. The greatest mistake a man can make is to be afraid of making one. So the more we get out of this idea that it's not okay to make mistakes, the further we'll go. Because a lot of people, the way that they, achieve their goals was by making mistakes and making them fast and not allowing those mistakes to get them caught up or make them feel guilty or make them identify as a failure. And that was something else he talked about as well in the chapter. Um, and I mentioned this earlier. He said, you cannot correct your course if you are standing still. You cannot change or correct nothing. You must consider the known facts in the situation, imagine possible consequences of various courses of action, choose one that seems to offer the best solution, and bet on it. You can correct your course as you go. I think it was one more. Yeah, one more quote. And it talked about emptiness and an inadequate self image go together. Emptiness may also be the symptom of an inadequate self image. It is impossible to psychologically accept something that you feel does not belong to you or is not consistent with yourself. So, those are all the quotes from this chapter, but this book is so good, y'all. I am thoroughly enjoying it, and that's why I've been time chapter by chapter, really getting into these concepts and implementing them. But the last part I wanted to share was for many of us, and I think I talked about this earlier. Societal pressures, generational trauma, and lived experiences can fuel some of these failure mechanisms. Whether it's feeling like we have to work twice as hard to be seen, constantly proving our worth, or struggling with burnout, this chapter reminds us that failure is not a life sentence, it's just a temporary state. The key to recognizing these patterns, Akai, go downstairs and go potty, please. These patterns and rewiring the script. This chapter is a powerful reminder that failure isn't who we are, it's just a process. By recognizing and dismantling self sabotaging patterns, we can reclaim our personal power and move forward with confidence. So that was all I have to share. We have about what, 8 minutes? 8 minutes left. Was there anything else you wanted to share?
No, that was awesome. I'm looking forward to getting this book. I've been
Mm-hmm.
I was just gonna sit and listen to what you were saying and connect on it on the topic on spot. But now I'm like, oh yeah, let me get this book. So thank you.
You are
I did
welcome.
find another book to share that's
Mhm.
connected to your chapter for next Tuesday. It's on
Okay.
forgiveness, so that's cool. I can read.
Ooh, that's gonna be so good. Because when I tell you the way that he explained forgiveness, he talked about um he calls it therapeutic forgiveness. And girl, I was like, wow, like all the church, all the the books, all the forgiveness training, I've never heard it talked about like this. So I'm definitely excited to have that conversation. Yes,
All
yes.
right.
Alrighty. Well, thank you so much for joining me. What's today? Let me check the calendar because I think I might have a schedule conflict. Oh no. All right, I'll be good. I should be good. I might move it up to 5:30 because my kids have a online event, but I will of course let you know in the group. Um yeah, I should be good for next week. If I need to move it up, I will let you know. But as always,
Okay.
thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate you. And for those that are catching the replay, thank you so much for watching. Um, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. I'm working on monetizing my YouTube channel. Um, yeah, and if nobody told you today, remember that I love you, I see you, and I'm so proud of you just for being you. All right, y'all.